Hello and welcome back to the Ark of E podcast. My name is Noah.
And my name is Gavin.
And we're the Blanchard brothers, back with your first 2x2 of this very special summer extravaganza known as
Summers in the ER.
That's right, the brainchild.
Sorry.
I was a little disappointed. Well, that's a different episode that we got to record in a minute. But
yeah.
I was a little disappointed that I didn't get a full-on credit scene and the old school score with this newish, very new episode that you showed me.
Yeah. That's like in this and it's crazy because like the one I showed you, the one we're gonna talk about later, that happened like there's maybe like I don't know 12 episodes like that because I feel like everything like boom real quick they had to start jumping into stuff. You know, like Heroes did it, all that, some change in format. I don't know what it was, but it's like you're on the way out. It's your last season. Just keep. Friday Night Lights still has the whole song.
Everybody's feeling that Breaking Bad vibe of just
I guess.
like, oh, all you need is like a title card and just a few chords.
Yeah, that's
all
it.
you need. Okay. So, for anybody who hasn't listened to previous episodes where we've teased this, Gavin, do you want to explain for the listeners what exactly Summers in the ER is and how it relates to our 2x2 today? Which is going to be, this is our 2x2 for the month of June.
Yes.
Part 1 of 6 of this
Yes.
little summer series that we're going to do. That'll run now through August. Our first pairing, Miracle Mile and Out of Sight.
Yes.
So explain for the listeners why we're doing those movies.
So, I went back and was like, ER's on HBO. I'm going to watch the whole thing. I never have. I know Mom's done it twice. And as I started watching these, I was like, there's a ton of people randomly in stuff that they're big names now. Like, we're not going to cover this episode. It's not going to matter. I was not even paying attention, and I'm watching an episode, and a friend of mine in the room's like, do you recognize who that is? And it's just a lawyer that's handing Benton papers for his like custody hearing. It's fucking Keegan-Michael Key, but he doesn't look anything like it because he has a lot of hair. And he's like not the tallest one on the screen, and you're like, he has like 2 lines. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy shit, it is. And so watching all these episodes, seeing all these people come back, like now that are famous and have gone on to bigger things, I'm like, there's been an ER podcast, I'm sure. People talk about it.
I'm sure there are many.
Yes. Yeah. And as it relates, like, now, unfortunately, Grey's is the longest running medical drama. But in our time, when we were growing up, ER was like the show that was like...
It's part of must-see TV, baby.
Yeah, appointment television.
Yeah.
So I was trying to come up with a way to where we could like talk about the show, but not drone on ad nauseum about episode by episode. And between our conversations,
and particularly so that I did not have to do what you did,
right,
which was watch 15 seasons of 22 episode, or like old school
22 episode, 24 episodes, sometimes hour-long drama. I did
45 minutes,
48 minutes sometimes.
Let me tell you, with the commercial breaks taken out, pretty smooth sailing.
Oh yeah, no,
pretty crackerjack pacing for episodes, to be honest with you.
It's one of those things where, like, I'm so glad we could do it, but I feel for the guy who bought all the seasons on DVD as they were coming out and, like, had the special features and all that. Mm-hmm. And it's like, pay $9 a month and get the whole thing. It's fine. But, so the format we came up with was, I'll pick a handful of episodes that have, very prominent guest stars, and they aren't going to be these ones where, like, Ray Liotta was in one, so it's about him.
R.I.P. Ray Liotta, yes. By the way.
We may do that as like a special, like, bonus Patreon only.
And a movie that I have not heard come up in a lot of the retrospectives. Nobody talks about Narc and the kind of like the second wind of the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. We did an episode on Narc earlier this year. Yeah. So
we may have to revisit and give our best, like, little bits of him, because
that one was a bummer, man.
Yeah,
one of my faves.
Yeah, out of the blue. But where was I going with this?
Sorry.
We weren't going to do anything like Sally Field has a recurring role in the later
right.
seasons.
You're kind of limiting it to episode start because, of course, I watched the episode that we're talking about later today.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, but I would kind of want to do a movie with, or Angela Bassett, or Courtney B. Vance, or like, I'm just like going down. I was like, when did these people come on the show?
Right, and that's exactly when we get to the episode that we can talk about why I did this one first. So the idea is we're going to talk about an ER episode. From that episode, we're going to have guests. Noah should probably find the guests pretty simple. There may be one or two in there that he's like, oh wait, what? I missed them. And the guest star obviously has gone on to be a big thing, or was just like coming back for one episode as like a cameo thing of like, oh, look at this actor from back in the day who's on a primetime television show. We're going to pick a movie from each of the guests, because most of these I've picked out have two guests that are kind of big names, and we're going to do a movie of each of their filmography, and we'll talk about them as the 2x2. But the way this is going to roll out, and the reason why we rolled out with this is because for those of you who don't know, one of the bigger stars coming into this series was a man named Anthony Edwards. Most of you don't know who he is, but his name, everybody knows who Goose is, with Maverick coming out.
Some of you probably know Dr. Mark Green.
Yeah, but that's what he'll always be to me.
Some of you, if you're really hardcore,
Harry Washoe.
But also, Bill Armstrong from Zodiac. Stealthily the best performance in a masterpiece of a movie. But one of those where he came back and you're just like, hey, did you guys forget how fucking good Anthony Edwards is? Yeah. Can you put him in more shit again? Yeah, that didn't really happen.
So but because the two big names, like, to me, this show, like, it, starts a lot of people's careers. So yes. For the most part, some of them jump onto other bigger shows. Some of them go on to movies, and I'm sure everybody knows this by now. But there was some guy. It was it's like Miguel Ferrera's cousin or something. His mom
Rosemary Clooney's nephew.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, he had like a famous aunt. Some guy named George. It was weird, just George. Yeah. This guy named George Clooney. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I don't know why they hired him, because every single pilot or TV show that he appeared on prior was canceled subsequently. Except for a pretty decent stint on Roseanne.
Right. And as we saw when we were down at the beach, the Golden Girls. I don't know if you were paying attention when that was on.
I might have missed that.
No, we were watching hockey that night. The night before the episodes where he was on as like a detective with the Miami PD Vice Squad, he was on. So yeah, George Clooney was also in this show, as well as another ensemble cast of actors.
I'm sorry, but it's already hitting me. I'm just like, next summer, do we stay in the ER, or do we take a trip on down to Miami and we do Miami Vice?
Dude, I am
as the template for.
I am
season
here for it.
Summers in Miami.
Yeah.
Summer Vice.
Yeah, the Summer of Vice. Yeah. Yeah.
Just a thought.
No,
put
that's
it in your
perfect,
back pocket.
because I honestly, that'll probably be the next TV show that I go back and kill everything and watch it all.
And I have never seen an episode.
I've watched the pilot, and the pilot alone could be an amazing film if you just left it at that.
But that's like what ER is to the 90s and early 2000s,
right?
Of just a cavalcade of stars that you'll go on to see all over the place. Miami Vice is that for the mid 80s. So
we've got to somehow tie Nash Bridges into that, though.
Dude, we never watched that Nash Bridges, the new movie.
No,
sorry.
We got to figure. It's got to be on.
You keep talking. I'm gonna find out where that's available.
Yeah. So that's to kick it off. We're gonna do Miracle Mile and Out of Sight, and we can talk about why we chose these two. When we discuss them here in a second. But essentially, the format, the way you're going to do it is if you're not a Patreon subscriber, if you're not going to go to Patreon, and it's like you have it up there for like $1 a month. It's super cheap. It's like a lot lower than a tank of gas, I can tell you that. Essentially, if you don't subscribe to Patreon, you'll hear the movies. Like these are our 2x2s. They're going to be purely focused on like ER guests. Because we've kind of tried to come up with a theme for them on the fly, and I felt like this was a way to just kind of like hone in on a specific little thing, very niche, very like, why do people care? It's right on brand with us. Why?
Exactly.
You know, there's all this amazing TV going on now that we're watching, so we can talk about later. And that's another thing too. You didn't want to go back and watch the whole series. How can you? There's such amazing television on right now. So this is just maybe a little break for you. So you're not like, oh, I got too much to keep up with. Oh, let me take a break. Let me just relax.
It's like, you only got to watch 6 episodes.
Right. Yeah.
6 episodes. Very manageable.
Yeah.
That's why I got a lot of respect for a lot of the 6 and 8 episode series of this year.
So, you know, the one we're going to talk about next when we record, you know, because spoiler alert, we record things at different times and like not always right as you hear them. If you're not on Patreon,
That's why there hasn't been an episode for like a month.
Yeah, we took our summer break.
We took our summer break so that we could do content for you during the summer.
Well, yeah, while some people were still in school and finishing up, we were like, we'll take our vacations. We went to the beach. I went on down to Florida. It was great. And we'll, you know,
I'm technically taking my second vacation this coming week.
I'm going to the Keys in August too. So you know, it'll be a nice way to bookend the last.
People are like, "Do you need us on your Patreon? You guys sound like you're doing quite well." We do. We do need you to get on that Patreon.
We would appreciate
Check
it
us
greatly.
out. If you're an ER fan, or if you just want to throw some love our way, that's patreon.com/thearkofe. And by the time you're listening to this, you can go and listen to the first episode of Summers in the ER, where we cover season 15, episode 6, Oh Brother.
Yes.
So if you want to watch that on HBO Max, before you check out the episode, you can do that. Giving you a little heads up right now.
And I'm sure they would appreciate that. So yeah, if you're on Patreon, you will hear everything as it's intended to come out schedule-wise. If you are not on Patreon, you will just hear the movie portion, and maybe at some point
just hear the 2x2s here on the main feed. Yeah. But if you want to have some fun, revisit some classic and maybe not so classic episodes of ER, a show that we love but both of us fell off with. Gavin has now, like we said, gone back and watched all of it. Mm-hmm. And maybe this will convince me to do so as well, but that seems like way too much of an undertaking.
And I'll tell you this, if you were one of these people who are like, oh, Romano, I'm out, like when he was gone, there's not a lot afterwards. They kind of, to me, I feel like, and I don't know how much of it has to do with Michael Crichton passing away, but they kind of were able, what I appreciated was they were able to see the writing on the wall, write a way out of it, but also write it that like they could pick up tomorrow and do ER again with the same cast, and you would probably still watch it because of the intensity of everything and how good it was when it was in its prime.
I'm already itching so hard to start talking about the episode or go more into I feel like we should chill on the show, save that for our first episode, and transition into the two gentlemen who we're going to be talking about and where they are at career-wise, because we've strategically picked a pre-ER Anthony Edwards role and a Clooney role that you essentially explained to me, because I didn't know the timeline on this, was kind of the final nail in the coffin of like, now he's a movie star. Right. Now he doesn't need the show anymore.
Right. Now, do you want to go out of sight first? Do you think beauty before brains, or what? How you want to do this?
If that's the way you're leaning,
that's what I'm thinking. Well, because like Clooney, because that's the thing. Clooney, to me, is essential.
Dr. Doug Ross,
yes, he's essential because, to me, like, okay, there's 6 seasons of Golden Girls, and B. Arthur wants to leave, and you get the Golden Palace, and then that's it. Okay, there's 5 seasons of ER. Clooney wants to leave, and then you got 10 more seasons. So it's one of those things where you it's like if you're a historian of film and television, I'm sure you can point to that as a watershed moment of, here's a TV actor who at this point in time, there is no, it's appointment television. It's all network. You have some HBO stuff that's kicking up, but not like at a critical praise moment yet. And here's a person who's been on this show, but has managed to eke out just a little bit of a movie career, a little bit with, a little movie like, From Dusk Till Dawn, and a little movie like Batman and Robin, just some small pictures, to prove that like, hey, he can do it.
So he's still on the show when Batman and Robin comes out.
He's technically still on the show when Out of Sight comes out. He leaves in February of 99. That is when he exits midway through season 5. The Peacemaker, Batman and Robin, Out of Sight, One Fine Day, which I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, well, if he can do the rom-com thing, he can do anything. And of course, From Dusk Till Dawn, as Rodriguez has said, he wanted him to play a guy who sent people to the ER, not a doctor who saved them. And so, and if you look at that character,
check out our previous episode on From Dusk Till Dawn on a little series called Rodriguez Revisited.
Yes. There you go. Tons of plugs. And if we have to, we can just pull that off the main feed and put it on Patreon too. More content, baby. So, Doug Ross as a whole, if you look at him, he is a guy who does not give a fuck about what you, the establishment, says he can do. He cares about his patients. And that's it. And I'm only going into this now because I don't think I have too many on there that focus on him per se, because he's only there for 5 episodes or 5 seasons, excuse me. But he's the guy that's like, no, I'm going to take care of my patient. And famously, he leaves the show because there's a child that's dying and the child will not get better. And he instructs the mother on how to deliver pain medication. Mm-hmm. And she eventually, she agrees, like, yeah, I'm not going to let my baby suffer. And they find out about it. And it causes this like semi bit of a rift because towards the end, they're buddies. Like the first episode, the pilot, Doug is drunk. He's coming from partying. He's going to be on soon. What does Mark Green do? Puts him on a gurney, gives him an IV, puts him in a room, and that's that. And then like that, boom, the chaos starts. And before you can get into like, oh my God, what am I seeing? The chaos is over. It just shows you just how quick a trauma center can come alive and then be dead. And so that, again, that's why he leaves. And essentially, there is an arc with Carol, Juliana Margulies. Mm-hmm. And she is,
because they're kind of on again, off again.
Right. Like they had dated before and it was kind of He kind of played around. She kind of played around. She was going to get married. She got stood up and he basically came back and said, like, I'm in love with you and I want to be with you. And it's so sad, but like she's telling him, like, I don't want you to leave Chicago. And he's like, there's nothing here for me. And she's like, well, why don't you just stay for me? And he's like, I can't. Like, I have to work. I love you, but I love my career more. I'm dedicated to like trying to save lives, particularly children, because he's a peds doctor. And there'd been some stuff about his fellowship kind of running out. Were they going to keep him in earlier seasons? But again, 5 comes along. He's got a good career going with movies, and he just says, I'm gonna step away. And so that's why we chose Out of Sight, because to me, at least why I thought it should be Out of Sight, he had managed to film, most of it, everything else, like on summer break and stuff like that, and it worked for him when the show's on hiatus. But to me, Out of Sight, when I watched that for the first time, not knowing kind of where it was in his filmography, when I found out later, oh, this is just like literally released right almost like a year before he leaves ER. This was, to me, was the one, because Three Kings comes out in 99, and we love that one. And I will go to the map for Three Kings all day. But Out of Sight, there's just something about him in that movie. He's just so fucking just good. Like, he's just, how do you not want that dude to just like get everything he ever wanted and live happily ever after in Florida with Jennifer Lopez? Like, why do you? It's so, I don't know if it's the Soderbergh angle. I don't know if it's just like,
it's in many ways, it's like a dry run for the Danny Ocean character.
Oh, dude, if you just called him Daniel Ocean, just changed the name, and that was his origin story, I totally would have been down with that.
Well, and that's what I love too, is because you're also getting this 2 years after Jackie Brown, mm-hmm. which is Tarantino's take on an Elmore Leonard story, and him tweaking it a bit.
Right.
And like Get Shorty is what, 95?
Yeah, I think so.
So like these are popular. I still wish we'd gotten more of them or whatever. P.S. Justified's coming back.
Yeah, I saw
later
that
this year. I think it's later this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you're getting a bunch of these like different interpretations of Elmore Leonard. So part of it is the Jack Foley character as he's established, like narratively and everything.
Right.
But part of it is also like the perfect synergy of like what Clooney does well, which is just one of probably easily like the 5 most charismatic on-screen performers of our lifetime.
Oh, yeah.
Easily. And one of those people who, people still point to as like a classic movie star in terms of performance, in terms of looks, etc. But just a rock solid, like, they don't make him like this anymore.
No.
Like, he's a leftover vestige of, like, he seems born out of time almost.
Yes.
And he's tried to do the Redford, like, transition to directing and everything somewhat successfully.
Yeah.
Mostly not, as far as people are concerned. Doesn't really seem that concerned with acting that much anymore, but and he doesn't have to. There's like, 10, 15 movies of his that I can go back to at any given time, and I do often. But I do kind of wish there was just one more, like, honestly, just another Ocean's movie where you get just that pure charisma from him. But Jack Foley, in many ways, is a precursor to me to Danny Ocean. And it's not, and of course there's the Soderbergh connection. Obviously, the two of them like working together, but it's just a vibe of, like, just utter coolness. And that's the thing, is like the Foley character though is a little grimier, a little more rough around the edges.
Right.
So that's why I say it's like, it's a prototype, and it fits because in From Dusk Till Dawn, he gets to turn on the charisma, but the sheer nature of that narrative and that character, just who those guys are, who the Gecko brothers are, is kind of a barrier to entry to you being like fully. I feel like you feel bad for being as into that character as you are. Right, you know what I mean?
Well, and like with Foley, it's like, oh, he's in prison. It is what it is. But like, he's just robbing banks.
Yeah,
the money's insured.
He's non-violent. Exactly. It's the perfect setup of just like,
and like,
this guy's just good at what he does.
Yeah,
but he's kind of what you get more in the novels. Because he also appears in Road Dogs, which takes place like after he gets out of jail for what happens at the end of Out of Sight. But he is kind of an idiot. He's a little bit of a
I mean, that parlays perfectly into the one that's going to come 2 years later. And Oh Brother, We're Out There. Well, he thinks he's the smartest dude in the room, and he's probably the dumbest. But you'll never tell him that. And he seamlessly rolls through all of those characters.
Yeah, no, all of the Coen collaborations I love because you get, and it's a shade that you never were ever going to see on ER, because he was the coolest cat in the room in every single season that he was in. There was never a competing, like, oh no, this is the Doug rival who like might replace him or could be our replacement.
You get that with Luca when Goran Viznik comes in right afterwards. Yeah,
he comes on right afterwards.
Literally, like a couple of episodes later,
I thought he's Luca walking was in. Like he walks in right at the beginning of the 2000s, like right when I started watching. But maybe he was just getting more featured by that time.
Well, because Luca comes in and he's a thing, and she tells him like, "Hey, Ross has left. If you want it, you can have it full time. Like, you don't have to moonlight for us if you want to come and be an attending over here." And he's like, "Yeah, okay, I'll do it." And of course, he meets with Carol. He gets with Carol. Carol finds out she's pregnant. She's gonna have Doug's babies, and poor Luca, because it's like all these women that are like, "Oh my God, Dr. Kovac." They like leave.
I guess Kovac was kind of
he's the next heartthrob, so to speak.
And Noah Wiley kind of grows into that a bit.
I would say this for anybody who's going to watch ER all the way through. Watch that show with Carter as the main character in mind. It is an ensemble.
Yeah.
But pretend that Carter is Michael Crichton moving from a career from med school all the way to what he becomes at the end of it all. And we can talk about that because it'll come up eventually. But,
P.S. everybody, you're going to get a lot of ER talk in these episodes. But this is kind of our table setter again, because we're focusing on the guest stars, but we figured this is a great way to intro it.
Yeah,
so
because we may want doing one where there's like, we talk about something like, I don't know, do we want to talk Darnie Darko? I wish Noah Wiley was in more movies. That's all I'm trying to say.
Same here.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because he's one of the greats.
So, I mean, how deep do we want to go into Out of Sight, the movie, or are we more approaching these? I feel like with the guest stars, it's going to be more exploring the movies themselves, rewatching them. Some of them will probably be first timers, depending on where we go. And another question: are we going to break the 10-year rule in the case of people like? I mean, I don't want to spoil until we get to the episode we're doing, but like some of these actors who appear in stuff like post 2000s, like, are we gonna pick like a movie they had a bit part in that's 10 years old, or are we just gonna like it's the summer in the ER, all bets are off, we can pick whatever.
Anything can come through that door.
That's my thoughts as well. Okay.
Yeah. When you got a trauma,
I love it. Anything
can come through that door.
Guys, you got to get over to Patreon. You're going to hear awesome, like, I did intro music for it.
Good. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. It's going to be good. It's going to be professional. It's going to be worth your $5 for the month.
Well, we have never talked about Out of Sight, because that's the only problem I'm going to run into is like, I feel like we may have talked about some of the ones I have planned, but we haven't talked about Out of Sight.
I'm sure it's come up because it's a movie I rewatch probably at least like once every 2 years.
So I can give you, we just do like main plot time real quick. Jack Foley is a bank robber.
A gentleman
bank robber. He's so polite to the lady. He's like, "Hey, that's my partner."
One of the best opening scenes in the history.
And to see where you get from later in the movie with that, I'm like, this is fucking perfect.
Finish your plot time. I'm sorry. I'm already geeking out.
No, we're fine.
Go ahead.
So basically, Jack Foley, unfortunately, gets caught in a bank robbery, sent to prison, where he essentially breaks out and, just by happenstance and pure luck, happens to kidnap a federal marshal, Karen Cisco.
You got it.
God damn, I'm good. And I watched this movie like 3 weeks ago. And so as part of the escape plan, has to basically, be in the trunk with her. Turns the charm on effortlessly. And, everybody knows, they've talked about it. Karen shot the last guy that she was with because, he was dating an FBI agent, and, all this while, wasn't until he actually broke bad and became a bad dude that she had to shoot him. But for whatever reason, Karen can't do it this time.
I forget which book that is, but yeah. She's another. That's the other thing I love about Elmore Leonard, and I haven't even read all the connected.
No,
books,
I want to see what
Foley, Karen Cisco. There's precursor books for like Ordell and
Jackie Brown and Beaumont and all that.
Yeah.
I did thought that was one of my favorite things about this, because what this movie has that I think elevates it is it's obviously Dennis Farina. I mean,
it makes everything like
10 times better.
Yeah.
I love. But anyway, so Foley and through
finish the plot.
Foley's like, okay, there was a guy in prison that I knew that had a lot of diamonds, a lot of gold, whatever.
Albert Brooks. We'll talk about him later.
Yeah, we're gonna need to get to his place to get these things, and we may or may not have to make a few weird stops on the way. Ving Rhames is his partner and buddy, and Buddy has this like weird predilection to like have to call and confess the crimes that they committed afterwards. And you find out the only reason they went to prison was because he did it beforehand. And he's lovable. These guys are fucking lovable. They're like, yes, they're bank robbers.
Yeah.
But
they are surrounded by some genuine bad motherfuckers.
AKA Mr. Don Cheadle.
Yes. Snoop.
Who, I'm sorry. That dude, it's like
He's like it's a few years off Devil with Blue Dress, right?
It's like somebody told him it's like he woke up the morning of the audition for Devil in Blue Dress. He looked in the mirror and some entity said, you are going to get X chances to do this. You need to be on point every time. And it's just every time that camera is on, that motherfucker is just on, and he is amazing. I have never... I don't know about that Traitor movie. I don't know if he's good in that or not, but I'm pretty sure he's the only, if it's shit, it's because everybody else around him is shit. He's doing his best he can to hold the whole thing together. But that's one of those dudes that I'm like, I'm sure I say no one gives him credit. I'm sure people who matter give him the credit, but I don't hear his name mentioned a lot for stuff. And it's a shame because that dude is one of the best for me. Again, I may not be reading the right magazines. I don't know. But, because Don Cheadle shows up on ER for a little bit. Yeah. As a, patient with palsy.
I remember.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And when asked why he
Idiots,
did it,
more
he did
water
it just to
problems.
say he could. Because he wanted to challenge himself. And that's just the kind of dope
Okay.
guy he is.
But, okay.
Oh, and Steve Zahn.
So-
You can't forget Steve Zahn.
Steve Zahn, of course. Well, but yeah, you've seen it. If you're listening this far, you've probably seen Out of Sight. I would take it. I just want to shout out before we go too much further.
Yeah.
Because he's a huge candidate, at least for me. You know, once upon a time we used to do director-centric series.
Soderbergh, is that who you...
John Carpenter, Robert Rodriguez, and
Mr.
Mr. Michael Mann. Soderbergh definitely would have been on my short list of people I would like to do at some point, but goddamn, he has so many movies.
Wait, are
for
they
one
movies
thing.
or are they films?
Well, he's got a nice mix of both. I just wanted to say, I don't know, throw me some other 5 movie runs that are better than Out of Sight in 98, into The Limey in 99,
Ooh.
followed by the 1-2 punch of Aaron Brockovich and Traffic in 2000, and he caps it off with Ocean's 11.
Yeah.
And then there's Full Frontal right afterwards, which, you know, one of his weaker efforts. But then you got Solaris right behind it,
Oh, yeah.
which I love. Another Clooney collab. So, but yeah, interesting topic. 5 movie runs. That's a pretty strong one, I
Yeah.
would say.
I'd have to agree.
One of my absolute faves. Just brilliant guy. Way too smart for his own good. Yeah, makes it look too easy. He's one of those guys.
Right.
Personally.
And it's like if it's too easy to
And
you,
just
it's a movie. But
and
if it's
just
like amazing, it's a film.
refuses to quit
Right.
innovating, even though he's retired like 2 or 3
I was gonna
times.
say,
Just
that's the
keeps
only-
like finding ways to keep it interesting for himself. I get excited anytime he makes anything. And this is definitely, I would say, in my top 5 Soderberghs, which is saying something. Endlessly rewatchable. Just a total vibe. And again, if we want to still stay at the Soderbergh angle for a second, he is doing a lot of precursor work for what you're about to see in The Limey, when he goes absolutely hog wild with the editing
Yes.
of his movies and the construction of it. He's playing around with it here, and you get the most obviously like memorable is when Foley and Karen meet up again after their initial encounter a few weeks down the line in a hotel, and they're just act as normal people. It's the most iconic scene in the movie, I feel like.
Yeah.
More so than the trunk scene.
I do.
Because of the editing in it. And you could sit there and say he's kind of just riffing on Nicholas Roeg in Don't Look Now, the Donald Sutherland, Julie Christie sex scene, where
Yeah.
it's like it's happening as they're getting ready simultaneously. Like you're seeing the before sex and the after sex intercut with the sex itself, and it's all just a splashy montage of everything happening simultaneously, almost.
And it's weird that like, not even how many years ago did she do the one, or does the one with Nicholson come after this? The one we covered.
Blood and Wine.
Yeah.
Blood and Wine predates this by like 2. I think it's a 96
Yeah.
movie.
It's so crazy because it's like she burst on the scene with Selena. I mean, people probably knew Jennifer Lopez was.
But people were able to wrap their heads around that, I feel like, because of, she's singing,
Right.
It's a biopic.
Wait,
There's
she
things to lean
she
on.
danced for
but
Puff
I
Daddy?
don't
What?
think people were like, I think people were like, oh, she's a star, but I don't think they quite knew what to do with her or what her capabilities were.
until this, and that's one of the reasons why I picked it too.
And that's the other thing too, is I feel like she had a great little run going from this to The Cell, which I still think is an incredibly underrated movie, and she's super strong in. But it never, like, I'm trying to think.
Lest we forget Anaconda.
Well,
Noah?
excuse me. Yeah, Anaconda is a huge hit when it comes out,
Yes.
right? Does really well.
Oh yeah.
And then she has Made in Manhattan when she transitions more into the rom-com area, which a huge hit again. Mm-hmm. Then I feel like she kind of stayed in that space for a while. And
Well, there's Enough in there. That's a good one.
I forget Enough. Yes, how can we forget? Is Billy Campbell the shitty husband in that?
Yes.
Yes. That was a big... I feel like that was on HBO when we like had HBO for a time.
Right,
You remember when we were just... Yeah.
That and Domestic Disturbance, I feel like, were back-to-back things on HBO
yeah.
back then. Yeah. I don't like Vince Vaughn as a bad guy early on, but like later, give me all Vince.
Simi's in there. Oh, yeah. I might need to go back and take a peek at that one.
Because I say that because Dragged Across Concrete played like 3 times while I was down in Florida, and I was like, I'm just gonna I'll leave it
I had
here.
to give that another watch too.
Oh, dude, I was like, I watched the movie in 3 different segments because like 3 different nights it was on at different times, and I was like, oh, I caught it here. I'll watch to the end. Next time I fell asleep in the middle, and then I caught the middle on the third go round, so I technically watched it again just to like, you know.
Okay, but yeah, I don't know where you want to go. I got lost in that that scene.
Yeah.
But I feel like I don't think she's ever topped this. I feel like it's perfect marriage of character and her performance. But I don't know that anybody's ever given her the opportunity to do something like this until, I guess, people loved Hustlers as this big like comeback performance for her. I didn't really get it, I guess.
Yeah.
I thought she was totally fine in it, but it didn't, and I don't even really know. It's hard to separate in here what's her performance versus like just the character of Karen Sisco, because notably they tried to do a series with Carla Gugino, if I remember correctly, right? In like the early 2000s. I feel like it's one of those one and done
Possibly,
seasons. Yeah. It was either like USA or it may have been a Fox show. They tried to get it going for a bit, and it never really took off.
And that's the thing is, like, I buy her as that because of how it's written. Because they go into, like, okay, she's dating Ray, but Ray's also still married. So maybe he's kind of, like, flighty. Maybe he's not there. And I didn't know until this rewatch that that's supposed to be Jackie Brown's Ray. And that's one of my favorite bits of that, of it all, that Tarantino was like, no. Let you know, no fee. Let him be in this. This is an Elmore Leonard character. We have to, because I love when he shows up and Farina's like, hey, Ray, you ever try wearing a shirt that says undercover? I'm just like, huh?
Well, it's so...
And then whatever the fuck they're talking about when she comes back inside and they're talking about, I don't get it. It's just this. And I'm like, I want to know. I want that conversation. I want more of him in the movie.
The thing I love about it is you come in with the foreknowledge of Jackie Brown. This is a total out of sight falls. It's a Sycamore movie for me. This is right around when I was like, oh, I can rent anything R-rated I want. I'm watching the other Tarantino movie that I haven't seen yet. Because Kill Bill had not come out at that point.
No.
It was like right on the horizon. But at that point, there was only the 3 and then 4 rooms from dusk till the tangential stuff.
Yeah.
But you come in with the foreknowledge, and it's like the way Keaton, the character is not inconsistent, but this just gives you another shade of him where it's like he seems like big swinging dick, like owns the room in Jackie Brown, like always gonna get his man, like he's a fucking super cop.
Yeah.
That's the vibe. And then Michael Bowen in that movie, you're like, fuck this dude.
Yeah.
But anyways, so then you see him in this, and you see like Farina basically like, fuck this guy, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, he's a hotshot, but you don't get that from Jackie Brown because you're not getting how other people see him. You're just seeing this one angle,
Exactly,
and everything. So I loved it for that alone, where it was like it's adding dimensionality to this character, and he's a supporting player in this, even though he is supporting in Jackie Brown, but like it was at the time, it was like, oh, the comeback movie. It's like De Niro was already having a great 90s regardless.
Right.
It wasn't a comeback movie for him. It was, if anything, it was a departure. It was a weird role to put him in.
Right.
Because it's so quiet and like.
But yeah, but Jackie Brown is like, hey, he did this for Travolta. Keaton, here you go.
Keaton is that in that movie.
Yeah.
For sure. And then it didn't really have the same effect. And then same thing with Forrester. Like Forrester got cast in more stuff. Here's what I was going to say.
One of the great ones,
dude. Absolutely. R.I.P. as well.
Bob Forrester.
Dude, I want to get my hands on this Karen Sisco show because I remember it now, but I did not remember all of these people. So it was an ABC show. Disney put it on Disney Plus. Let us get that shit. It's just called Karen Sisco.
Really?
Yes. Carla Gugino is Karen Sisco. Bill Duke, okay.
What?
As Amos Andrews, who I think is represented in some way in Out of Sight, but I can't quite remember. And then Robert Forster is in fucking Karen Sisco.
What?
As Marshall Sisco, as her father, subbing in for Farina.
Oh, okay.
I would totally watch. There's only 11 episodes.
Dude,
like,
yeah.
if they're on YouTube, I'm going to check that shit out, dude. Bill Duke and Robert Forster.
Yeah.
Like, and I love Carla Gugino. And I could see her subbing into that character the way she is written.
Yeah, that fits. Yeah.
But again, I think Jennifer Lopez is, like, literally out of sight in this role.
She totally is.
One of my favorite Steve Zahn performances. Just
man. Yeah.
just a
really
complete moron. Like, just a great dumb guy.
Yeah.
In this situation. Kind of akin to the Chris Tucker Beaumont character in Jackie Brown in many ways, honestly.
Is Rescue Dawn a big deal for him?
No.
Well, I see people talk about like that movie and his performance in that, and it's like, oh yeah, Steve Zahn. I'm like, he's Steve
Zahn.
He's Steve Zahn.
He's always great.
Yeah, I mean,
name me a bad Steve Zahn performance.
I can't
wait.
think of one, man. It's not. Yeah, it's you know, and it's so weird because it's
the
like
man does whatever the role requires, and he does it
serviceable journeyman. He puts his hard hat on every day and goes to work like the rest of the actors who make it.
But this is top 5 Zahn right here, baby. I mean, this is right up here with Joyride.
Yes.
Right up there with That Thing You Do.
Oh God, yes.
What other Zahns do we like?
There's one.
What are the other big Zahns?
Is he? Dude, where's my car?
No.
Is
he in it for a bit? I don't know.
There's one he's
Sean
in.
William Scott and Kutcher. But he might be in it for a second.
There's one he's in that I'm like, this one I'll go to the map.
Dude, I love that IMDb has Joyride in the top 4.
Good.
As well it should be.
What are the other 3?
Rescue Dawn is in there.
Never seen it.
It's good. I saw it in the theater because that was at the height of like, Christian Bale is the new Daniel Day-Lewis. I must see everything that he does. And also I was like, I hear this Werner Herzog is somebody I should be aware of. But I think I had watched like maybe one Herzog movie.
Something that is very hard to replicate.
You're all cowards. You should use the puppet.
Mr. Reacher. I don't. Dude, that guy should just narrate everything. Like, stop making movies. Just fucking narrate shit.
Are you going to guess the other 2?
I cannot. I could not for the life of me guess the other 2.
You would never guess one of these.
What is it?
It is the third in a subsequent trilogy to an old school franchise from the 70s, sci-fi franchise. He doesn't play a human. He plays a bad ape.
Oh, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes?
War
for the Planet of the Apes.
Third,
okay.
Yes.
All right.
And the other one is I want to see if this was actually successful. I remember this as a big, like, summer blockbuster starring 2 well-known dudes.
Sahara?
You nailed it. And no.
I just
$130 million estimated budget, gross 66 US, made a worldwide just under 120.
I just remember the scene.
Never saw it.
Me neither. I see the trailer.
But you know that poster. You can see it in your head.
And I can see the trailer of them being like, put down your guns, and he's got a gun in like every crevice of his body.
Yeah, you can see the amber filter over everything.
Yes.
And the, it looks like everybody is baking constantly. McConaughey is at his peak tanness. Oh my God. I just ruined my
Beach
own
Bum?
joke. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for being there for me, brother. Appreciate it.
I'm going to be there in August in Key West. It's going to be great. I'll be looking for him.
You find them.
Yeah.
Find him.
Yeah. Out of sight. What would you give it out of 10? Out of what's your ranking?
Oh, this is a classic for. I mean, I hesitate to go like full on 10 out of 10 just from a pure like. I think there's better Soderbergh. I think he tops a lot of the stuff he's doing. Like,
okay, well, how about
filmmaking wise? It's a rock solid 9.
Okay,
9's
good.
I love Out of Sight though.
When
one of my
favorite
movies.
When we get done,
yeah,
we'll decide which one of these should you see. You got 2 patients that jumped in the ER. Both of them are critical. Which one do you go for first?
Okay.
We'll do it that way.
Which one requires more attention?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Because
what's ailing them?
Yeah, right. Okay. What's eating?
Okay. Okay. If we're approaching it that way, just because we're flying by the seat of our pants here, is there anything that doesn't work about Out of Sight? Anything that didn't age well for you on the rewatch? We don't really do this ever.
Yeah,
It comes up naturally, but yeah, if you had, is there anything that, I mean, you can say no, but
no, I mean it still plays everything. The Albert Brooks is fine with me.
I love Albert
She
Brooks
was great.
in the like later half of his career.
Right.
Like this is a different mode, and this is almost bridging the gap between his like, you know, Albert Brooks fucking defending your life and like all that shit, like his self-written stuff, but it's like a transitional point into like he's playing a criminal, but he's like a white collar criminal,
Right.
And then like
Straight up
a little
in
bit
Drive.
further down from
Yeah.
here, we're gonna have Drive, and then I don't know if you ever saw A Most Violent Year with Chastain and Oscar Isaac, but he also is more in that mode.
It keeps
in that.
coming
He's
up on
very good.
HBO Max as something I would like, so I probably need to watch it.
You would enjoy it, I think.
I'm sure.
Definitely more my vibe, but I feel like you would enjoy it.
Yeah. No, nothing doesn't work for me. It's one of these where
No,
I'm like,
again, I think this is a perfect like end-to-end movie. There's nothing I would cut from it.
it is both seamlessly dated but not dated, because you're not given a time frame, but you do know there is the existence of cell phones, but it doesn't give you the idea that like this would never happen, because like, you know, prisons are like really amped up a lot, you know, after 9/11.
Yeah.
So, but it's still, it works in this thing of like, this is just all this stuff happening. And one of the things I do when we do these, and I don't really mention it a lot, is like the couple of screenplay classes I took at USC, they always just talked about like, and then this happens, and then this, and then this, and then this. And like, you need to have an action that like keeps this thing going forward, but in a way that like isn't going to take away from your overall arc, but like it's still going to like you never feel like you're seated and you're good, you know, and you can just kind of chill here. You kind of want to have something going. So, you know, they leave her in the car, and they, you know, Steve Zahn bails on them. You know, she shoots her way out of the car. They got to do this. They got to, so, and you know, they barely miss each other at the hotel. Then like she has the dream sequence about him, and then they meet up.
Dude, we didn't even talk about Foley's ex-wife.
Oh yeah,
The magician's assistant.
Oh, yeah.
Played by Catherine Keener, who's incredible. And the scene where Luis Guzman
he just wants to know.
wants to come and is basically trying to kill her. The carriage shows up, but like that whole interplay, dude.
I thought that that's not, is that his ex-wife, or is that his ex-partner or like business
That's his
associate?
ex-wife.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Luis Guzman. Just, you know, hola mami, I just want to know how you do this.
Not one of those. That's the thing with Out of Sight. Like you were saying about Farina, it is populated by people who make the movie 10 times better, and there's a bunch of them in one movie. So you've got Farina, you got Michael Keaton, you got Luis Guzman. When have you ever been mad or upset or not elated to see Luis Guzman just show up in anything?
I mean,
he is one of the...
I'm going to tell you, I was getting a little bored with the Count of Monte Cristo. He shows up as his boy. I'm like, dude, I'm back in this. Let's keep going.
He is just a perfect addition to anything you put him in. Never, ever not excited to see that guy. He's one of those people. We should have a separate list of like, but Farina is on that list. They're not. It's not a that guy thing, because there are those people who you're just like, oh, I know that guy. I recognize that.
This motherfucker's in here. It's
just like, we're in good hands. Like,
yeah.
And it also simultaneously, if you see multiple of them start cropping up in a movie, you're like, well, this director knows what he's doing, or this casting director clearly does, because like they know what I know. This person fucking rocks in everything.
Yeah.
This person is never bad. But yeah.
That's
It's just people coming to, again, the fact that like Catherine Keener is like, what, like 10 rungs down the cast list on here. I'm just like, it's so stacked. Everybody comes into play. It's just a fun vibe of a movie. It's a little more heavy than Oceans. I think that's the thing why ultimately, I don't know why I'm comparing the two, but they're so aesthetically connected. And yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, I mean, it's essentially, you know, he gets his own way out of prison, whereas like Oceans is just, all right, he's out.
Yeah.
But you definitely, like, the way they end it with her basically making sure that he's going away with a guy who's known for getting out.
Well, fantastic. I love any time Sam Jackson shows up uncredited,
Yes.
which happens a lot actually.
Of course.
But yeah, you're just like, who else would I like to see in the back of this van right now? Oh yeah, no, make
It's
it
like,
the coolest
what it is?
motherfucker on the entire
It's like,
planet.
it's almost as if like Sam was at Quentin's when they got the call about like, hey,
That connection too of the fact that he's already in the Leonard verse.
That
Yes.
too, he could. I mean, I don't make him Wardell, but still, like, it's almost as if like Sam was at Quentin's house, and somebody called, "Hey, there's this thing with like Keaton in this new Soderbergh guy's movie," and they're like, "No, do that." He hangs up the phone, and Sam's like, what's Soderbergh?" And like, what? Omar, what are you talking about? He's like, "Oh yeah, well they got a, character this and that." Oh, okay. And just by happenstance, somebody puts it out there like, if you need Sam for like, he's available for the afternoon. You want to just throw him? Yes, we do. Boom, and he's there, and it's just like, oh, okay,
Okay. We got to shout out. Oh, we do have the weird. It's a weird Grays connection, right?
right.
Because is Isaiah Washington, who he's the one who did he get kicked off of Grays
Yes.
because of the whole. Who was the other actor?
I can't remember.
He used the F slur. We won't repeat it here. So, yeah, that's just one of those weird 6 degrees of separation thing that he ends up on Grays way down the road. But did he even make it 5 seasons before that happened? I don't know. I just remember that being a huge story at the time where it was like, I never watched an episode of that show, but I knew when that happened. That was like a huge thing.
And because we may not go back, we may go to Miami. We may not go back to the ER.
TR Knight? Does that sound right?
Yeah, that sounds
something like that. I know he was. Okay.
You can track in ER when Grace comes out because there is an episode about 3 weeks after Grace premiered. I tracked this where Neela is doing a surgery thing, and they say, "Oh yeah, they talk about this surgeon who like he has a compulsion." And they're like, "Oh yeah, around the office they call him McCreamy because he has to go jerk off." And I'm like, okay, they're obviously throwing shade and making fun of like Grey's Anatomy, but it's almost like very soon they realize, shit, we need to get out of the game because like people seem to love this stuff. And I get what it is. People want the doctors in their personal lives. They don't want the bloody patients because we've had almost 10 years of bloody patients and children dying and AIDS and, viral outbreaks and helicopters falling on people and shit. Like, we've had all that. Now we want to know what's like when they go home. Yeah. And so it's interesting that towards the latter part, if you watch that last series, you get more and more of these things of these people at home. But I also think like it's such a giant cast, you can't give everyone their comeuppance at home. So you have to start like kind of thinning the herd in terms of who you're getting involved and who you're caring about the most. And I think that's the thing that Grey's did, because like I'm like, that's great that it's about the doctors and like their love lives and all this shit, but like I watch ER because like it almost felt as real as possible. Like I think we can go on record as saying our mother watched ER and then our mother quit her job and became a nurse.
Yeah.
Not in a trauma ER, but that's the shit she loved to do the most. Oh yeah, if I got to put a needle in it, if I got to poke it, I got to cut it, yeah, I'll do that. But she ultimately went into like, cancer and hospice treatment and all that kind of stuff. But still, like, give me a number of how many self-admitted people in the 90s saw that show and thought, holy shit, I bet I could do that.
Yeah.
The same way that, a ton of fucking people saw Top Gun and were like, I think I'd like to join the Navy. It's the biggest recruiting tool for the Navy in the 80s. Hands down.
Or people who were like, I want to be in the Air Force, and then they were like, that's not the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Wait, they don't go in the water? No. Why I don't want to be the one in the Navy.
You got to see Maverick so we can talk about it.
I definitely want to.
Third favorite movie of the year. Right?
And that can the Maverick Top Gun angle can transitions us into, there was an actor who started in ER named Anthony Edwards who had already had somewhat of a big career when it came to being in movies. And whereas Clooney starts on this show and starts making movies, it's almost the reverse with Edwards, where he'd been in hits And then he
this
decided...
this is still in a period of time where, yes, an actor of, granted, not his like incredible stature or anything, but an actor essentially like signing on for a television series after they had been in movies would have been seen as like a,
Oh, we're putting you out to pasture.
Oh man,
Great.
Oh, I feel bad for
Well,
Anthony.
listen,
He's
we'll see you at
he's
the
going out
Oscars
for
when
this
you get your
doctor
lifetime
show.
achievement. You know,
Yeah,
the doctor show with the guy that made wrote Jurassic Park. Okay,
but
all right.
I feel like if you're a casting director and you, again, we're the kind of people we're talking about who would have cast something like Out of Sight, but if you're somebody who watched movies in the 80s or whatever and we're like, there's something about this guy.
Dude, there was this popped up. I need to tell you this before we jump into it.
Please do.
Something popped up after all the things I watched in VR. It's a HBO Western where he plays like a dainty, like he's like a Anthony Edwards is like a school teacher, and this bad outlaw gang comes through town and winds up like taking, this young girl that he's like interested in.
El Diablo.
Yes, El Diablo.
You know who wrote that teleplay?
Yeah, I know. You can tell them that man right there. That's what clued me into it, and I was like, how did I never
For the
know
listeners
this?
who can't see us because we don't film this and it's not a visual
Yeah,
podcast,
we are
we're pointing to our framed signed photograph of Mr. John Carpenter,
Yes.
the patron saint of the Arkofe Network.
Yes. You would not have a network if it was not for that man. Yeah, I had no idea. And it popped up and I started watching. I was like, this is actually pretty fucking good.
I've had it saved on my HBO Max
Okay,
list
good.
because when we were doing Carpenter, it's like, yeah, that was one of the random credits that it's like, fucking, it's like, wrote Eyes of Laura Mars as well. And like you have a handful of those where it's like, oh yeah, he had story by or script credit on this or that or whatever.
It's
And
like his SAG dues were
he was
up and he
always
needed to-
supposed to
yeah.
do a Western, always
Right.
wanted to do a Western. This is the closest he
See,
ever kind of got.
This is why we can talk about this later. I want to start a petition. We can talk about the petition later because you probably don't want me to tell you what the petition is on mic because you don't want to get into it. It's ridiculous. It's a petition to get him to come back to make one final film because the last film can't be The Ward with Amber Heard. I can't have it. I won't stand for it. That's the petition. Change.gov. Let's get the signatures out there. One more movie. Doesn't have to be anything big, but I can't let your last movie in your career be The Ward with Amber Heard. I get it. You were telling us all along, the girl's crazy. Got it. You put it in your movie. That's great. But no one listened to you because no one saw The Ward. I need you to have one last hit. Go out in a blaze of glory. Everybody's making Westerns now. There's been like 3 Billy the Kid movies. Make your Western. Your real Western.
He is busy playing Elden Ring, all right, dude, and he's going to be busy with it for quite a while.
That's fine.
I've already put 100 hours in myself.
I did just beat Jedi Order and
Fallen Order?
Fallen Order.
The first one. The second one's not out yet.
Right. No, I went back and beat that.
Okay.
And
This is Gaming Corner.
yeah, Sifu.
This is part of Summers in the ER. We're going to talk about video games now.
Downloaded FIFA 11.
Well, whenever you want to play.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
FIFA
I play
11? You mean 22, right?
Sure. I'm thinking winning 11. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's been Video Game Corner. Yeah.
Yeah, Elden Ring's dope. I'm taking a long break from it. I've taken like 2 weeks off. I started replaying levels of Hotline Miami 2, wrong number, because it's summertime.
Right.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Going back to Miami. Okay.
I'm not going to lie to you. No, I've put Miami Vice on every night I've gone to sleep. Like I'll watch stuff, but when I'm done carrying, I put Miami Vice
it's
on.
already settled, but
Yeah.
I'm so excited for next year when
Yeah.
I can finally watch some Miami Vice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the
Summer reruns.
But Glenn, how are you going to watch Miami Vice?
Miss Miami Vice?
Summer reruns. Which is perfect because Summer's in the ER. These are all going to be reruns because the show ended almost 10 years, more than 10
Do
years
they
ago.
rerun it anywhere now?
It is on one of
We
those.
of course
like,
grew
hot-
up. It was always on TNT in the mornings.
It's
for,
mom
like-
says she's caught it on several whatever channels. I mean,
I'm
the
glad to
syndication
know
alone.
it's still
Yeah.
in the rotation.
Yeah. So again, with Anthony Edwards, you have someone who had moderate success coming into this.
He has pretty much a non-speaking role in Fast Times, but you'll recognize him in
Yeah.
there. Revenge of the Nerds. We don't have to go into it, but big deal for him. I mean, he's the second lead.
Yeah.
The less creepy of the two. Robert Carradine. Sorry, but you know. gotcha. I feel like it was like,
Yeah.
it was all right. And then Top Gun.
Yeah.
Iconic role as Goose.
Yes.
Here's the thing, though. And I guess maybe it was a money thing. Maybe it was a big hit, and they were like, why not? This is what you do with comedies. But I feel like, why did he make Revenge of the Nerds 2? Post Top Gun. Like, he didn't need that.
I don't think he's in that, though.
He is.
Full on?
Nerds in Paradise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a contract thing.
I don't.
Maybe
would they have contracted them though? I feel like that was just an indie sex comedy. They didn't know that was going to be anything.
Well,
But is it in the wake of Porky's? Because maybe they did know that maybe that was the plan.
I don't know. You never know why these things happen. I'm sure you could dig it up and figure it out. But I know maybe it's the third one. He's like there for a minute and then he leaves.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I know one of them technically he's supposed to be in. He's only at the beginning.
It's
and
just
maybe
weird that that's a year prior to the movie that we're here to talk about, which is 1988's Miracle Mile.
Right.
Kind of a notorious movie for us personally, because I don't know about you, or maybe this was just my perspective on it. I felt like this was a movie I knew about and had seen sequences from, but was still kind of notorious in my mind, where I was like, I knew there was this movie with Mark Green from ER that was vaguely about the end of the world. And then I remember it was on Stars for a time.
Yeah.
But I feel like I kept catching it at weird points and never quite saw it. And then rewatching it this time, it unlocked something for me. There are two movies that I remember seeing bits of as a kid in Japan that I did not have context for. Things that mom and dad were watching.
Mm-hmm.
Probably rented on VHS from the shop at or whatever the video store was there. There was a video store. This has come back in my memory. There was a video store.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
There was one in the shop at.
Right.
In that strip in between the youth center and the high school and the towers.
Right. But there was an actual video store. It's pretty small, but I remember there being an actual one. Okay.
Yeah.
Just that crept back into my brain. Anyways.
And then you could rent them from the Yujo Community
movies
Center.
that have, or excuse me, 3 movies actually. And 2 of them I have been able to cross off my list. One of them was The Abyss.
Yes.
Okay. Which I finally had context for. I was like, okay, I get what that's. It was Ed Harris trying to revive her. I did not know what the fuck was going on as a kid.
Yeah.
Okay. And that sequence goes on forever. And I remember just seeing it out of context and not knowing what the hell was going on.
Me too, yeah.
So The Abyss was one. Poltergeist was another.
Yes.
The Red Room sequences towards the end, I remember being haunted by as a kid. I watch them now, and it's a fun in a nostalgia way, but not scary at all. But at the time, it was probably the scariest thing I'd ever seen in my life. Okay. And the third one, I am convinced, is Miracle Mile, because I remember vividly how this movie ends.
Right.
Like, I remember that sequence of them trapped underwater, essentially, with the water coming in.
Yeah.
And that dialogue and everything.
Right.
And yeah, I'm like, did mom and dad in my brain it exists as a Japan memory, but maybe
I will tell you this. This is one of those that I saw sight unseen with no internet. I didn't know what it was, and it just happened to come on, and it was HBO or something. It was either at Plantation or it was like when we first got to Whisperwood. But I remember watching it, and it solely for the telephone sequence is probably in my top 5 of like complete fucking left turn movies. I could talk about Left Turn, like From Dusk Till Dawn is in there.
Yeah.
If you don't know, first time, like ones I wish I could watch for the first time again because of sight unseen, just to experience it. And I'm hoping that people didn't, because I'm feeling like a lot of people got this and maybe sequences from Night of the Comet mixed up. Because
talk about the perfect double feature.
Yeah, that would be a great double feature for like
just desolate LA at night movies.
Yes.
That don't immediately come to mind. Okay. Please do plot time. For Miracle Mile.
So while on a trip to the Museum of Natural History near the La Brea Tar Pits,
He works there, right?
No, he's just visiting. He's a musician. He plays the trombone.
He's just in that blue suit because that's what he's wearing.
That's what he's going to wear to
Does
his event
she
later.
work there?
She's visiting. They're both visiting it because he's like pretending to be a tour guide.
It's a very. I mean, I remember.
It's like a meet
Yes,
cute.
okay.
They're both just happen to be visiting.
It's a very oddly edited sequence.
Yes.
If you'll give me that, and it is literally like the first sequence in the movie.
Yes. So our main man, Anthony Edwards, Harry Washoe.
Washello.
Sorry.
I named a song after him.
Barry. Yeah. Okay.
You're gonna hear it at the opening of this episode.
Harry. We're just gonna call him Harry. He meets. God, what is her name?
The actress?
Mare Winningham.
It's Mare Winningham. I don't know.
Which she is dating now, by the way.
Yeah, after all these years.
Yeah, crazy. Julie, is that her name?
Sounds right.
Julie. It's got to be Julie. Tell me it's Julie.
It's I'm working on it.
Not a weird friend's
phone's
connection.
about to die.
Oh
but,
wow. Anyway, he meets her in a meet cute, and they spend all this time together. It's not much time together, but it's pretty fast to where like the people she works with knows about him, and like he meets some of her family, and they decide
It's her parents very quickly.
Grandparents,
excuse me. Yes, and
by happenstance, the grandparents don't speak to each other from an old thing. So they agree that they're going to meet up after she gets off work where she works at her diner job. And unfortunately, happenstance of like some animal eating wires and like the power goes out. He wakes up 3 hours later. He thinks it's like only 9 o'clock. He's got done with his little music gig, and he doesn't realize till way late that like, oh wait, and this is one of the brilliant things I love about this movie. He looks at the television and it's not on. It's running the sign off
station
broadcast.
Identification,
right?
Whatever, yeah.
The classic color scheme thing, and that's when you realize, oh shit, it's
had 24-hour.
Right, it's after 12 o'clock and stuff's done. So of course he races to the diner. He's late. The people who are waiting on him are like, "Come on, man! Like you stood her up." "Oh, I fell asleep." Blah blah blah. So just by happenstance, he's outside, kind of trying to figure out what he's going to do. I got to make it up to her. And the payphone next to this place rings. So he answers it, and on the other side of the phone, there's a frightened young kid that trying to find his dad, to tell him that he was right, he was sorry, but that basically the end of the world is going to happen in the next hour.
Or World War III.
World War III is going to start.
Actually.
They've already shot their nuclear wad off. They've already sent it over to Russia, and we're going to be getting the blowback within an hour, maybe 2-3 tops. And again, watching that unseen, and this is when I'm still in the mindset of like, I'm worried about 2000. Okay? I'm worried about what's going to happen in the year 2000.
Mm-hmm.
I was a scared Y2K kid. I thought Armageddon was going to happen or a deep impact situation was going to happen. And, I was worried. So to see this sight unseen, I'm kind of freaking out a little bit because I'm like, this would be my nightmare, to be told that I have less than 3 hours to figure out a way to survive a nuclear holocaust that's impending. And very quickly they divulge, like he tells the people there. And just by happenstance, one of the women who's in this diner is like, "Oh, I'm on it, baby. I know what's going on.
I got connections at NORAD.
Let's get out of here."
Very convenient. Yeah. Great place to be.
Yeah.
Let's that's Denise Crosby.
Yes.
Who people may know from Pet Sematary.
Mm-hmm. And who's the cook?
Classic.
I know him as he's the police captain.
We gotta
RoboCop.
We have to come up with. We do our off mic tongue twisters to warm up.
Yes.
We got to come up with one for Mr. Robert Doquy.
Robert Doquy.
Yeah. D-O capital Q-U-I. Robert Doquy.
All right.
Huge favorite of Robert Altman. Pops up kind of across the Altman filmography as well.
Huh.
I was going to say. I mainly say that because I watched Nashville for the first time ever, like about 2 or 3 months ago, and it's a giant mosaic of cast, of course, but he stands out and he pops, and I was like, oh, dude, RoboCop, and then I rewatched RoboCop a few weeks after that as well.
Yeah.
So he's been on my brain. And then I watched Miracle Mile. I was like, oh, dude,
Yeah.
I can love this guy.
Well, then
those are kind of your main, kind of the only people that pop.
Stand out in that
until
group.
we get Michael T. Williams
Yes.
a little later.
So after they dispense,
sorry.
well, no,
We
no,
gotta build up to that.
No, it's all right. But they dispense with like, is this legit or is it not? And of course, Harry's whole thing is like, I gotta get Julie. I gotta get her. Like, if I can bring somebody, get her. If I'm back at this location by this time,
chopper.
I'll be able to get to a helicopter that'll take me to an airport that I can fly.
Yes.
And hopefully we can, we can survive this. So, and that's, I think, one of the things I love about the movie itself is that it isn't completely bleak the entire time. There is still this hope. And so there's this running clock, which is great. It's a night movie. It's LA. It's a running clock. And it's just this wild ride through it. And, shortly after the events of this, when he realizes, wait a minute, we're not driving to her apartment like I thought. He's got to get off. He's got to go find her. He runs into
Michael T. Williams.
Yes.
There's a whole situation outside of a gas station.
Yes.
Cops get involved.
Who's that dude? Because he's been in shit. And I thought he was one of those guys that was like a legend in Hollywood. He's in Heat, is he not?
That's Eddie Bunker.
That is Eddie Bunker.
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
thought. That guy, if you're not familiar, Eddie Bunker is how Danny Trejo has a career.
Yeah, Eddie Bunker is a legit. Eddie Bunker essentially could have been Jack Foley in another life. Mm-hmm. I think a lot less nicer version. But of course, he's in Reservoir Dogs. He was a consultant for a lot of Michael Mann stuff, and Blood In, Blood Out. That's how he got Trejo in, right? Blood In, Blood Out is his big. Is it or no? Is it?
There was another
Doing Time, Hard Time.
whatever movie
It's a
where
prison
Eric
movie.
Stoltz. Yeah, it's a prison movie with Eric Stoltz because Eddie Bunker was his sponsor.
He
I believe.
basically became a consultant on
Right.
a lot of these movies, and yes, he was also a recovering addict as well.
Right.
And so yes, but yeah, Eddie Bunker shows as the night watchman at this gas station.
Yeah.
Maybe vaguely racist, anything. It escalates. Cops. Get
Oh,
involved,
I love it. He was like,
Yes.
man, he's like, oh man, I ain't got a permit for this gun. They give me 10 years for this thing. Well, they give me 20 for what's in my trunk. It's like, okay, and then he's like, evening officer is like, this man tried to rob me. I work here. He's like, he's lying, officer. Just a fucking classic, dude.
Yeah, just immediately. But somehow, and I'm thinking like, okay, maybe there's gonna be a little chase or whatever. What I did not expect was for Michael T. Williams to gas up these
The female
cops,
cop, yeah.
light them on fire, and then blow up the entire gas station.
He didn't light him on fire because the line is, I had to do it, but they didn't have to shoot because apparently her shooting her gun.
Yes,
that
all
spark,
happened.
The tiniest spark
yes.
from the revolver lights her up, and it's not
And
until
then
they
the whole
right away
station
blows up. Yeah, I like to think Eddie Bunker made it out alive. He was just like, fuck this, I'm
Sure.
gone. Yeah.
So that's kind of the first big wow where you're like, oh shit, like people are dying now.
Yeah.
Because what the movie toys with, and I really wish they had played more into this. And this is one of the where we get into, I think this movie is an incredibly great concept and a little bit of flawed execution overall. And I think is ripe for some sort of modern remake.
Oh yeah.
I think it's one of those that we look at where it's like, there's things to improve on here. There's a great core, but maybe it all doesn't fully hang together. One of the things that I think maybe gets a little more into Twilight Zone territory, I wanted them to play more with like, because they're doubting him the whole time. And,
a lot of it, yeah.
And to a certain extent, for a while, you don't know, is something actually going on, or is it the word of mouth, the fear, the it comes at night sort of thing.
Yes.
Of the fear, the paranoia is the infection. Mm-hmm. She dies tomorrow. Right? Yeah. In that vein, I think there's untapped potential in this to explore,
because there's plenty of people like the guy.
What if you maybe you heard something. Maybe it was real, maybe it wasn't. Maybe you weren't even talking to anybody on the phone. But what if, just through the sheer power of suggestion or your own paranoia, you whipped up this frenzy around you?
Right.
That starts just splintering out and affecting people. And that's what I kept waiting for. Was I was like, oh yeah, but isn't there some dark twist where like the whole end reveal is like, oh no, there were never any nukes launched. That guy was crazy on the other end of the phone, and like,
but the only thing about
you
it
caused
is,
all this shit.
well, the only thing about it that I appreciate is that, like, eventually, like, the guy on the end of the phone gets murdered. Like, you hear the gunshots,
Right?
You know, and I think you could take that element out and just have the phone line go dead, and it makes the story 10 times better because you have that to play with. Because he's basically piecing it together, and there are plenty of people who don't believe him.
Right.
The guy that, like, he was he's the shitty dude in Ghostbusters 2 that puts them away. He's Lenny's like second dude. He's the shitty Jack dude from Ghostbusters 2. He's out there on the thing. He's like, she's fucking paying me $3,000 for this shit. Like, I'm ready to go home. And you're watching it like, bro, did you not hear why this woman wants to go? Like, does she not tell you the bombs are about to drop? He's more concerned with, like, you know, doing that and, like, just getting the fuck out of there. And then where we find him at the end is amazing to me.
That gentleman who you're talking about who's ranting, that's Kurt Fuller, and he's been in a million things, but for me, the thing I just remembered, isn't he the cop in Scary Movie who's like, oh yes, Cindy, can you take what do you think of these? And he shows her like the photo array, and it's just him, like, you know, in like lace underwear and shit. Are you remembering this?
I think that's him.
I think that's definitely Kurt Fuller, and that shit is hilarious.
I think I remember that.
You know who I'm talking about. Dude's been in a billion things. So yeah, here's the thing as well. I don't think we get enough setup with Julie.
Right.
We don't get nearly enough Mayor Winningham in this. And I think there's a way to restructure this where she's more of a character, as opposed to just kind of like, he eventually does link back up with her, and she's kind of just in a, you know, she's kind of just being dragged along. You know what I'm saying? Well, there are emotional beats, and they get there eventually towards the end, but I feel like there's a way to have more of the two of them, and more setup, just in terms of like, dude, I get that, like, maybe you're a little lonely or whatever, and this is like, you really felt a connection with her. I don't think they do a terrible job of establishing that. And don't they even reference that, like, they've seen each other once or twice before?
Right, yeah, they've seen each other
but
there before.
It's definitely shorthanded, and I get that, because you do want the momentum of, like, moving into, okay, well, now we're in
we gotta get on the clock.
evening, and, like, we want this ticking clock. But I feel like just a little bit more establishment of that, and maybe not as much of a gap to, like, get to her. Like, I think it should be an effort, but maybe it's like, oh, she's not that far away, I hoof it, but then it's a barrier of, like, getting her to buy into this.
Right.
Like,
because he tries to keep it from her for the longest time.
And it's like, if this is a new guy who, like, you don't fully know well, it's like, you're more inclined to be like, oh shit, I picked a weird one, like, I fucked up. And, you know, that whole aspect of it you could play more on, and, like, I feel like that would have great tension to it, because if we've bought into it, we do have this ticking clock. But if we're also exploring, was this guy kind of losing his shit, then we're also playing with that paranoia angle.
And if you get into it, if you look at it, the people who or let's just say that the people who've been living under this Cold War the longest, the grandparents, they know what's going to happen. They were trained for this. They had films about
that is a great moment when they kind of choose just to go off.
And she's like, wait a minute, because basically he has to tell them, like, this is going to happen. Like, he lets it slip. Somehow they find out. And so they're like, well, you know, we gave her a Valium to go to sleep. She was so upset, blah, blah, blah. And when they find him later and they're like, hey, we're going to get up and go get breakfast. It's like, oh my God, they're speaking to each other. And he's like, yeah. She's like, we're going to go.
Oh yeah, they had.
We love you, honey. Yeah. You know, we're just going to go sit there. And he's trying to, like, talk him out of it. Like, come, you know, don't you want to come with? no, we're good. We're gonna go off together. It's so sweet and so sad, but she plays on it like, well, I want to go with him. And he's trying to keep that from her. He doesn't want her to have to like get that. But then where you ultimately get to of like, they're in the shit of it now because we fast forward and it's basically, you know, old boy comes, you know, cops are chasing somebody, and you're kind of vaguely hearing like, you know, hey, all these things are happening. You know, like he leaves her on the helipad, and that's where she finds out like, oh shit, like this is legit. Like these people are leaving because the bombs are on the way.
Right.
And she comes downstairs to try and find a helicopter pilot. And that's probably one of my favorite sequences in the movie, where he's in that gym trying to find it, and the one dude, I don't know his name.
That's Shao Kahn, bud.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. It is Shao Kahn. And he's just like, I can fly. I'm like, hey, I gotta go. This is happening, man. He's like, if it really is the end, I gotta bring someone with me. Okay, fine. Leslie. It's like, problem? Nope. All right, let's go. I love it, dude. I was like, fucking perfect, you know. And it's just like these one, you know. And I didn't remember like the whole like him having to get across traffic.
Brian Thompson is the actor.
Right.
Sorry.
I didn't remember him having to get across traffic and how crazy it got. I don't remember that the first watching, but
I will. Here is where it. You know, I imagine it had a bit more of a budget than Night of the Comet, but when they do get to these crowd scenes, I think they do a fantastic job of the staging of this feeling very chaotic, and like it doesn't feel like they're cheating the size of the crowd. There's one I mean the shots in the trailer, but when you've got like people on top of the cars and kind of like gridlocked or whatever, and it's kind of almost coming up over the horizon sort of like shot of it. Yeah, I was like, oh, the escalation,
right,
I thought was very very effective.
When you talk of like playing with, is it gonna happen? Is it not? When you get the scene of like Michael T coming back in, I forget his name in the movie, him coming back in, having been shot up by the cops, and his dead sister with him, because he just had to get his sister. He had to go,
right?
Because they steal that cop car. They don't, you know, his car gets blown up. And it's like, okay, he's dead now. And she's like, oh shit, it's real. It's getting real. People are dying. And when you think like, fuck, they're going to how they're going to think about how they're going to get out of this. Like they're already in the store. The cops are, wait a minute. Where are the cops? Why aren't they kicking everything in? And then when they make it outside, the last thing they see is a guy who's supposed to be rappelling down, being like, I'm out, because the word's gone out. It's happening. There's no escaping it now, you know, and how quickly that devolves into like, or just tears apart into like utter chaos.
Yeah.
From then on, it's just this, it's like, okay, it's a fight to get back to the top of the helipad. They get back up there, and what's his face? Fuller is just like coked out of his mind. He's probably just got done. He looked like he just got done murdering someone. Because there's some woman laid out, like a woman, some other character is like...
I mean, or worse was implied. I mean, regardless, yeah.
He murdered, raped the corpse, whatever it is. Like,
Who
he
knows?
just completely... He's on every drug there is. And I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to get annihilated, yeah, I'm going to do everything I can as quickly as I can. Totally understand. I'm going to watch it until my eyes get burnt out on the horizon of the biggest building in downtown LA. Sounds great.
Yeah.
But you get that last glimpse of hope of like the helicopter guy being like, I told you I'd be here, you know, I wouldn't, you know, and
yeah, you're like, okay,
essentially at this point, you're like, okay, they can't get to the airport and leave, but maybe they can get as far away as they can. And, you know, I don't know, I don't trust anybody born after 2000, but I'm sure anybody our age knows it ain't exactly the bomb. It's the EMP before it that always is going to fuck you. And that's exactly what happens here.
Yeah.
And they happen to just fall into La Brea tar pits, which is where they first met and where they fell in love.
Yeah.
And it's not a happy ending.
Nope.
And it's made in 88 before the curtain falls. And that's what I talk to people about all the time when they ask about, what about this, what about that? And I tell them from 1980 to now, we stopped saving our money and we spent it because a lot of people in the 80s didn't think we were going to see the 90s. So what we saved dropped and what we spent went up, and it's just gone up ever since. We haven't gotten back to we're not going to get killed by the nukes and the Russians. Okay, well, maybe we start saving for the future. Nah, dude, we like our shit. We like our stuff. Fuck Reaganomics, but it is what it is. And this is one of those movies that I'm like, if it just came out maybe 2 years earlier, maybe mid 80s, I feel like more people would talk about it. But I can't find 5 people on this planet that I know
it's definitely
that have seen Miracle Mile besides
a
you
more
and
cult
Mom.
curio at this point for people. So, but yeah, in rewatching it and getting to see the full picture of it, because I don't know that I had ever watched it start to finish until this time. We didn't really talk about it. I think Anthony Edwards is great in it.
Yeah, perfect.
Maybe not like he's an interesting character who, again, you don't really know that much about because so much of this happens the way it does. I also wonder if there's a way to reapproach this where it's more of a, you've got kind of multiple narratives built up across the night of a couple different characters. Mm-hmm. Like you see them in the afternoon beforehand or whatever, and then it's like one of them gets tipped off, and then how it spreads throughout or different perspectives on it. I also, kind of lose the Taken Clock angle. I'm also like, it'd be kind of a cool mini-series sort of concept. I was
just fucking thinking that
to explore.
Sleek 6-parter HBO Max, yeah.
Because again, it has that Twilight Zone hook. There was in the research. Am I mistaken that this was at one point they wanted? We haven't even shouted out the writer director.
They wanted to
and my
add
phone died. Steve DeJarnett.
Yes,
is that correct?
And they wanted
it to be a segment in the Twilight Zone movie.
Right. Yes.
Which I just listened to a Behind the Bastards on recently. Actually.
Oh.
Did you listen to that one? Do you still listen to that show?
Oh yeah, I do all the time.
Did you listen to the Twilight Zone?
No, I need to.
It's a 2-parter. I mean, I knew pretty much all the details of this because I was obsessed with it when I found out about it. But the way he lays it out is still pretty compelling.
I definitely have to. That's what
because he did talk about stuff that I did not know about, which is like Landis's behavior immediately afterwards and at the funerals for those people that he went to and gave eulogies at Vic Morrow's funeral, which nobody asked him to do. What a fucking dickhead, dude. Mm-hmm. I already was kind of like, fuck that guy. After getting the details on the way he behaved afterwards, basically to save his ass from a legal standpoint or whatever his lawyers were advising him to do, what a piece of shit, dude. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that's the thing.
John Landis. Just want to get that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing. I feel like nowadays we are looking back at things and re-examining them, sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. But, there's, you can only have so much goodwill. Like, yeah, American Werewolf in London is great. Animal House, great. The Thriller video, great. But it's not good enough to do what you did with the fucking Twilight Zone movie, great. Like, you don't come back from that.
This would have, the main reason I even brought all of that up is this would have been the segment that would have replaced that.
Yeah.
Clearly, if you look at the structure of that movie, this would be the stand-in for getting at some of those elements of that one specifically about a bigot who has their outlook changed by going through historical events or experiencing things firsthand. But it's also I feel like tonally these two would be linked.
This is on the level of Nightmare at 30,000 feet. Is that actually something that's out there? Is that something that I need to really worry about? Or am I just in my mind? You can make this that. Yes. Totally.
And I feel like as a segment, you can keep it more ambiguous, whereas the movie wants to have some sort of resolution. Because I feel like it does this is actually happening. We're still going to have the downer ending. I think there's a way to do this where it's you still don't know at the end. And you can read things as is this beautiful moment of but at the end of the world, or is this bleak thing that this person caused inadvertently?
Right.
That,
Right. Because if you do add elements in multiple stories, you get to have that. You get to have this is so tragic they couldn't be together. And you get to have they wind up happily ever after, depending on routes that you go and what you do, And
I mean, I think it would be interesting to see what does a hospital look like the night this is happening? What does, like, law enforcement, what are they doing? And like we said, the guys who, like, essentially are like, well
they were going to run in there and blow Michael
T. Williams away.
They were going to blow
Williamson.
And all of a sudden they're just like, fuck that.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I think you could do... I wonder if you could do, like... What I'm thinking is, like, just because you have that imagery of them in the truck with all the food and canned stuff and they're driving, I would...
That's your first episode, and then you branch from
you are barreling down the highway, and you've got these people in the back. And... you give me glimpses to, like, break it up, what they were doing before they got back here. You don't give me all the way, but you get me enough to where, like, okay, I'm going to know this is how this person at least gets to the diner. And then I can go from there. And then my big reveal in the second episode, second half, the stinger to get you to come back for 3 is one of them just heard that we've already shot our nukes at the Russians or whatever bad guy we have, and that there are nukes on the way. And we need to get the fuck out as quickly as possible. We don't even have a time. We don't know how long it's going to be. It won't be any further, maybe 3 to 4 hours. We don't know how much time we've got, but we got to go now. And my third episode picks up with, like, rounding up what everybody was doing, how they got in the back of there. And then, okay, well, there's a problem. 1 or 2 of these guys can't run away right now. But the group knows that they've got the info. They know what's what. So what are we going to do? Are you going to stick with them, let them do what they have to do to get going? Or are you just going to go do your own thing and, like, fend for yourselves? And then you can run out how you want to do it from there. But I definitely feel like this is something that could be reworked into a limited series run. And you can, you can pull it, you can tie in so many things from today to make it legit. Like,
the paranoid thriller will never not be relevant, unfortunately. So, where did you watch this again? Because I, like an idiot, paid for it, but where can people go check this out?
I believe it's on Tubi, or it's on one of those, like, it's free. And it was nice too, because it was like the commercials felt like TV commercials. It didn't feel like something I was only going to see on a YouTube ad. Okay. So that was nice. I had, like, 1 or 2 like Vanilla Ice and Iced Tea calling people or whatever.
Okay.
Like those, whatnot. I think it was on...
That's a shout out for Tubi TV. Then.
Tubi or one of those. If you
ads.
Google it, that's what I love about Google now. You Google anything you want to find, it'll tell you where you can watch it. And a lot of those things are free. You just got to make an account.
I don't know where you watched Out of Sight. I own it, so I didn't have to.
It was on one of the streaming ones we already have. I didn't pay for it.
It's probably on HBO right now.
I think so.
Prime
actually.
or something. But yeah, it was fun going through these. Again, kind of the tail end of Anthony Edwards' film career for a while. But luckily he has basically one of the lead roles in what's about to become the biggest medical franchise of its day.
Right.
Medical drama of its day. And Clooney, we got him right before he's about to go off and, become fucking Danny Ocean and be like one of everybody's favorite movie stars for about 10 years. And then now I feel like people are pretty much indifferent to him.
Yeah. And we I'm not going to make you go through this one. So, it is an amazing, interesting arc with Mark Green, him, being the doctor, being the guy, his wife starting to get famous in her career. They're split. Him kind of, dude, there's some episodes where he is running through the ladies.
I was trying to nail it down. I was like, what? With Clooney, it's the charisma. I think the thing about Anthony Edwards, it's this odd mix of, it's not odd, I guess, it's unique to him. It's hard to pin it down, but to me, it's an earnestness mixed with a level of confidence.
Yes.
You don't necessarily get that in this because it's a character who's, like, full of self-doubt the whole time and is kind of flying by the seat of his pants. But the way I look at, like, the Mark Green performance and, like, kind of the best of, and, like, Bill Armstrong, which is my other favorite performance in Zodiac, is it's that there's no bullshit to him. He's he's not an overly jokey guy, which is why, again, like, I feel like even in the Revenge of the Nerds movies, like, he was more the straight man.
Right.
The stuff was happening around him. He was more the harder, the nicer
He's
guy.
the heart of it. He's the heart of that show. He's the heart of ER. He is, like I said, you look at it as Carter and his journey, but I mean, you set the tone, Carter. You know, there's so much wisdom in there, and like if you pay attention to it, he gets shit over. Carrie Weaver shits on him. He gets all this stuff, and it's not until later on that he starts just being like, you know what, I know what's what, and I know how to do my job, and I'm just gonna I'm gonna do it, and I'm not gonna give a shit about what happens because I got cancer, and I don't know how much longer I'm gonna be here, and I mean, there's so many little tiny arcs that you look at it and you're like, wow, this dude did this. It's not Hell and High Water. That's George Clooney's one where he saves the kid in the sewer drain. Mm-hmm. And I didn't put this one on the list because it's always been a rough one. The one that follows him for 24 hours with the pregnant couple and Bradley
Whitford, directed by Tarantino.
Yeah, the worst day of a doctor's life.
Yeah.
Just the range of everything. And like it ends with him just fucking crying on the L train home. That is like, if you weren't down for that show after that episode, fucking quit watching, man. Because like it is, that show had some of the most like pivotal like audience, you know, just you had to watch it. People talked about it moments. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's one of the last big network shows that did that. I know Your Heroes Come Along.
That had that monocultural,
that cachet of like just
attention that we talk about that everybody's been chasing since Game of Thrones.
But it may be helped by the fact that one of the best sitcoms ever was on at 8. You didn't have to do much after 8:39. You could eat, you could do whatever, and then 10 o'clock ER was on.
There was a period of time where you were watching Seinfeld, Friends, and ER.
Yes.
In one evening, on one night of television.
Right.
And there was something else probably in the mix there that
Will and
rotated
Grace.
out until eventually it was Friends, Will and Grace, and ER.
Yeah.
But for most of the bulk of the time we were watching, I'm just saying, like when the show started, and I feel like that other slot rotated out at the other half hour or something. But yeah, just the idea that you could sit down at one point, watch Friends, Seinfeld, and ER all in one evening is wild. Yeah.
Yeah, and his eventual, again, just because I'm not going to be, his Green initially gets cancer, but beats it. It's a nice upbeat, and then we have it's back, we don't know what's going to happen, and we eventually have him being like, you know what, my dad's gone, I've kind of messed things up with my wife, Corday, and I've messed up, like, raising my daughter because I let my ex-wife raise her, so I'd read where he initially had said, I want to, like, go out in a crazy, like, just bang, car wreck, I'm done.
Uh-huh.
But the writers convinced him to say, why don't you, like, give him a send-off? Like, let it mean something. Let it just sit with it. And so...
Oh, that Hawaii episode is, like, but it's, I mean, probably top 5 episodes of the whole series.
Exactly. And then the whole, like, the letter coming back. And it's interesting to look at that because, you know, they get the letter, he reads it, and Carter reads it to everybody. They say, Mark died today. This and this. He's like, all right, post it, put it on the board. And he posts it up there. And to watch the episodes after that, 1 or 2, where different characters are coming through and reading that and realizing, oh shit, Mark Green died. Because, like, we're here, we're bawling, we're like, oh my God, no. But there are people who read that, then they go put their lab coat on and they go to work. And, like, I know that's what Mom did. Because, like, there's plenty of people who, like, either patients of hers, the one nurse that they work with that unfortunately got cancer and he died. Like, I know that's how it is. Like, it's so, like, Grey's is Grey's, but to me, ER is probably more authentic on most levels. Like, when it came to just what people do in that profession, strictly in that profession of trauma. You do get to get into surgery some, you do get to get into some different things, psychology and, like, different, you know, parts of a hospital as a whole, but the whole focus is on that ER unit. And I just feel like it's one of those shows that, like, it was innovative, it was new. I mean, think about the oneers in every episode you see that have to work like clockwork, or you fuck it up and you got to do it again, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just amazing.
All that medical jargon.
Yeah. It's wild, man. But
Well,
it's
we will be talking a lot more about
Yes.
ER over on our Patreon.
Yes,
That's
indeed.
patreon.com/thearkofe. Please join us for Summers in the ER. If you choose not to, though, you will still be getting some 2x2s here. And we'll probably mix some other stuff in because TV is at critical mass right
Yes,
now.
indeed.
And we're just over halfway through the year. It's a lot. It is a lot, but a lot of great stuff out there. So we'll probably have some Barry and the Boys talk for you at some point in the near future. We've also got some, I'm sure there's some surprises coming in the summer, but our next big thing, TV-wise, once we get done with our Summers in the ER, will be some Cobra Kai chat.
Yes,
bringing
definitely.
that back. So stick around for more 2x2s on this feed. Check out our Patreon if you want to come on the journey into the ER guest star averse. And anything else you'd like to share with I don't know when you're hearing this, but hopefully before the 15th of this month, that's June 15th, I have a new album out called Scene Stealer. It's a little EP available wherever you get music under my moniker Narc. It's lowercase n, capital A, capital R, capital K. Also want to shout out, just for the hell of it, while we're at the end here, former producer of When the Sun Sets East and some other Archive podcast over the years, Mr. Nathan Hussey and his band All Get Out are currently on tour with Motion City Soundtrack, making updates that were unfortunately interrupted by COVID. So go support them if you can go see them locally. And their new album, Kodak, which is fantastic, is available as well wherever you get music. Might play a little bit of that to roll out to. We'll throw something on there. But until next time, I've been Dr. Noah Blanchard.
And I've been first-year resident Gavin Blanchard.
I guess I'm the first year resident, if anything.
Yeah, I should be the fucking attendant.
All right,
bro.
then you do the outro.
Okay.
By all means.
I was really just going to try and tell you, we got a lot on our plate. The future freaks me out. I was trying to throw that in there. I'm sorry. I just think we should just go clear, and then like you can add like a that in later.
That's gonna be for the.
Yeah, but that's right. Those are for the episodes.
You gotta go to Patreon if you want all the new music and the sound effect.
Okay.
We're enticing people. Dude.
So,
these are just boring ass 2x2 episodes.
So, I guess
where we talk about ER, a show that probably most people have not watched in years.
Or ever. Who knows?
Yes.
That's my discovery. I hope someone's like, I'll give it a try, and they are just fascinated by everything about it. And they're just like, holy shit.
If this was truly somebody's like window into ER, was listening to us talk about 6 episodes of it on a podcast, sort of tangentially related, that would just about make all of this worth it.
That's better than like, an interview with Yoni Wolf again. Like, it's just like the meaning, the symbology behind it all. I think we'd have done it all.
Symbolism.
Oh, symbolism.
We gotta abandon
So
that.
as your attending physician, I'd like to tell you folks, wear your sunblock, stay hydrated, and enjoy your summer in the ER.
You set the tone.